Hello and welcome to Finance Conversations. This is the 65th episode of the Merging Life and Money Show, and I am super excited to be here today. For those of you who do not know me, I am your host, Marie-Jo César. I help professional women bridge the gap between life and money by tooling them with the necessary financial skills and information they need to take control of their money, manage their finances, and recognize that they can live their best lives with the money they have. Thank you for joining in today. If you are watching the replay, make sure to type #replay in the chat and leave me with some comments and questions. Welcome, and welcome. I come to you live every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to give you essential information about how to attain financial wellness and live a life of means and purpose. As you may know, the Merging Life and Money Show's primary purpose and my very strong why is to empower as many women as I can by sharing what I know about money and finance so that they can live their greatest lives yet. So today, as indicated, I will be talking about a subject that is really near and dear to my heart. I will be talking about how women are shaping the world, even though they continue to face many challenges in the world of finance and business. There is, I would say, no arguing that women are taking over and have long been underestimated as a force in the world. And let me say that it is not just because we are voting more and earning more degrees than men, okay? Women are excelling in every field, from business to arts, from science to politics. Women are shining. So what does this mean for the future? Well, I could tell you, the future looks brighter indeed. In fact, some of the most powerful people in the world right now are women. So what's behind this rise of female dominance? I look like I'm starting to sound like a feminist, which I'm not. It comes down to a few factors: brains, brawn, and drive. So women all over the world are using their smarts and strength to achieve great things. They are proving that they are just as capable as men, and sometimes even more so. And there is no stopping them now. Okay, let's go change the world. Despite the fact that lots of women have done and are doing as well as what they have contributed and continue to contribute, have been ignored, they have been somewhat left out of society, I would say, in general. Okay, times are changing, however, and they can no longer be overlooked. We are here to stay. So grab a pen and a notebook, as you might want to take some notes to share and discuss with family members, friends, colleagues, because remember that it is about sharing values that could benefit others. Now, if you have any question whatsoever, make sure to put them in the chat. And if you want to talk to me directly, I will share my information with you, my contact information with you a little later in the show. So before we get into it, let's take a look at what women need to be able to stand in their greatness, in their brilliance, and go after their goals to change the world and, more importantly, the global economy. So tell me, how many times have you been in a meeting and one of the guys says something that is so off the mark and sexist that it takes all your willpower in order to speak up? Or Maybe you've experienced the opposite, where you are the only woman in a room of men, and for me, white men, and feel you are constantly being scrutinized. Believe it or not, this is an issue that goes far beyond the workplace. In fact, research shows that when women are not present in certain arenas, the future suffers. So, what can we do to ensure that women's voices are heard and their contribution valued? Let's start by looking at some of the latest studies on this topic, right? So while doing my research for the show, I found a paper talking about how countries progress towards women economic empowerment. This paper was actually prepared by the Gates Foundation, Melinda and Bill Gates. This particular paper defined economic empowerment as the transformative process that helps women and girls move from limited power, limited voice, and limited choice at home and in the economy to having the skills, the resources, and the opportunities needed to compete equitably in markets, as well as the agency to control and benefit from economic gains. And it says that women need a way to make money, which is a very first step to becoming healthy and strong contributors. It also says that women have to make choices where, when, and how they spend their money. They need their social and economic situation to get better. Okay? They need help to make sure that their kids are taken care of. And finally, they need the power to make decisions. Okay? With this power, they can act on purpose and work towards goals without fear of violence or retribution. So again, let me say, I'm not talking just in the context of the US, okay? The world, this world is a very big world, and the US is just one piece of it. So today I will talk about how women's contributions are vital to the future, and will address the following points: the progression of women over the past few years, the challenges that women are facing, and lastly, the way forward. So let's look at the first point, the progression of women over the past few years. Women are one of the most important economic assets in the workforce, as they are taking a leading role in shaping the future. The world has benefited from and continues to benefit from women in the workplace. They are not only raising the next generation of responsible and productive citizens, they are also driving innovation, making contribution in science and technology, and are becoming more involved in the world of business. Yet, they are not treated as such and not always valued and recognized for their contribution. Yes, there has been a lot of progress made for women over the past few years, right? Statistics show that women have been earning more college degrees than men. In fact, marking historic turning point in gender parity since 1982. So they've been earning more college degrees than men since 1982. Okay? And as a matter of fact, according to a more recent analysis of data collected from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, conducted by Pew Research, women ages 25 and over now accounts for more than half of the college educated workforce. Okay, so that's 50.2% of the college educated workforce, and this represents an 11% increase since the year 2000. So since then, women have consistently outpaced men in earning that same level of education, receiving 57% of the bachelor's degree awarded in US by US institutions in 2016-2017 academic year. And this is according to the National Center for Education Statistics. It must also be noted that since the turn of the century, 2000, the college enrollment rate for female students has consistently outnumbered males. And although women representation among the college educated workforce is expanding, guess what? They are still earning less than men. On average, a man with a bachelor's degree out earns an equally credentialed woman by about $26,000 per year. That's serious money. I would also add that while women have been told more education will lead to better wages, despite having similar qualifications, there is still a pay imbalance. And this is according to a 2018 Georgetown University study. Okay, I'm not making that up. In addition, women are also starting businesses at a higher rate than men. And despite this progress, there is still a lot of work to be done in order to achieve true economic empowerment for women. So while men still own the majority of businesses worldwide, the number of companies run by women has grown tremendously over the past decades and continues to expand every year. I will say that having more women start their own businesses is good for the world's economy as a whole and for creating jobs, right? And here are the facts. In the US, I would say 12.3% million businesses are owned by women. 31% of small businesses and franchises in the US are also owned by women. On average, companies owned by women grew by 84%, while companies owned by men grew by 78%. And lastly, Black women own more than 2.5 million businesses in the US, and it is by far the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. So let's look at the second point, the challenges faced by women. Over the past few years, there have been a great deal of progress made in the area of women economic empowerment, no doubt. More women are receiving education and training, and more women are taking on leadership roles in businesses and organizations. Also, more economic opportunities are becoming available to them. However, there are still some challenges that need to be addressed. Okay, so let's explore some of them. A lack of opportunity for women in STEM field, lack of access to funding for their businesses, the glass ceiling or concrete ceiling for some of us, and finally the gender pay gap. These are the main ones. There are far more challenges and obstacles than that for women in the finance and business arena. Well, women are still underrepresented in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math, which stand for STEM, STEM. So according to a report from UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, only about 30% of all students enrolled in STEM courses are women. Okay. So I would add that this disparity carries over into the workplace, where women make up just a fraction of employees in many STEM industries. And thanks to a combination of education and economic opportunities, this is beginning to change. Okay. Today, women make up nearly half of all college students, as I mentioned, and they are increasingly pursuing careers in science, technology, engineering, and math related fields. Another challenge is the lack of funding for women led startups. It is a fact that women often face more difficulties than men when it comes to accessing funding for their businesses. A study by the National Women's Business Council found that only 4% of women owned businesses have access to venture capital, for example. This limitation on funding can make it very difficult for women to get their businesses off the ground or expand them to new markets. Another study conducted by an outfit called First Round Capital found that only 2.7% of venture capital goes to female founded companies, and as much as 70% of female led businesses felt that their gender hurt their ability to raise funds. For sure, this lack of funding makes it hard for women to start businesses and certainly contributes more to the gender imbalance in businesses, right? So over the next, I should say, let's look at the next obstacle that women face, right? The proverbial glass ceiling. Okay, this is this invisible impediment, right? Call it block, wall, or whatever you want to call it, that stops women from getting to the top of their field because of some sort of discrimination. I will say that despite increasing numbers of women in leading roles, they are still very underrepresented in top positions, and they are still less likely to be promoted to top executive positions. In fact, recent statistics show that in 2022, this year, there will be more women running Fortune 500 companies than ever before. And as of March, a few months ago, 74 women were CEOs of the 500 highest grossing companies in the US. Okay, this represents a jump from 41 in June of 2021 and only 7 in the year of 2002. So clearly, progress is being made. So still, even with this new high, about 15% of the top jobs at the largest public companies in the countries are held by women. Okay, only 15% of those jobs, top jobs, are held by women. The number of female CEOs has gone up, certainly for the fourth year in a row, which indicates that calls for fairer hiring are slowly making a difference at the top of the business world. Lastly, the gender pay gap, right, is very much alive and well. Despite making up half of the world population, women continues to earn less than men for doing the same work. Yes, women have made great strides. I'm not disputing this in recent years. But as I said, the gender pay gap still persists as women still earn an average of 20% less than men for doing the same job. This discrepancy is even larger for women of color, as they still have the largest pay gap between men and women in the US. And oblige me, I'm going to talk about this. And by women of color, I mean Black women, Native American women, multiracial Black women, Asian women, multiracial Asian women, and Hispanic women. And of course, many other women that identify with the term woman of color. Personally, I'm a Black woman. Well, women of color have been the unrecognized backbone of the US economy for a long time. Okay? They are the breadwinners, workers, and caregivers. I will add that this important role was in the spotlight during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has destroyed the economy in every corner of the world and is still having lasting effects. Well, during the pandemic, as you know, the US relied heavily on women of color as essential workers to keep the economy going, to provide much needed services, and to support families. It also um, it also saw, I would say, that women take on a very disproportionate share of job, a very take on a disproportionate share of job losses and caregiving responsibilities, even though they only make a fraction of what their white and male counterpart make. Okay? Because of the persistent wage gap between men and women and racial bias in the workplace, many women of color are always underpaid, and these losses add up and get worse over time. Because of this, women of color are less likely to be able to save money, handle economic downturns, and reach some level of financial stability. Okay, so census data from last September showed that the wage gap between men and women still hurts women of color the most. In fact, many women of color have the biggest pay gap between men and women of all workers. In my opinion, the time for the powers that be to take the necessary steps to improve equal pay protections, fight bias, and help workers stay on the job, especially women workers, is long overdue. As I see it, all of these things are important for reducing economic inequality and making sure that women of color and their families have stable finances and partake in the economic empowerment trend. Okay? So I will also note that pay discrimination claims are still being made. Okay? Large companies are still fighting back against pay discrimination lawsuits. And low wage workers still have a hard time getting justice at work. In fact, last year, KPMG, this auditing, accounting, consulting firm, paid 10 million to settle pay biases and other discrimination claims. Google, which is owned by Alphabet Inc., also paid 2.6 million to settle discrimination claims. And more recently, I think a couple of weeks ago, my memory serves me right, according to the Los Angeles Times, LinkedIn agreed to pay 1.8 million to hundreds of California women in a pay discrimination settlement. And yes, I will be remiss if I did not mention that the US soccer team, after 6 years of legal wrangling, finally got its hard-earned equal pay day. So the question remains, is soccer making new rules for equal pay? Food for thought. I will end this point by stating that a study by McKinsey and Company found that if women participated in the labor force at the same rate as men, it could add 12 trillion with a T to the global GDP by 2025, which indicate that as more and more women enter the workforce and take on leadership roles, there will be a force to reckon with. And as women continue to overcome the challenges that they face, there is no doubt that they will make even more progress in the years to come. I also recognize that although women still have a long way to go, they are gradually gaining more equality, more equity, and opportunities in the workplace. Therefore, there are many factors that have contributed and continue to contribute to this positive change. And it is important to understand these trends in order to continue moving forward. Which takes me to the third point of today's show, the third and last point of today's show. And I realize we are already 26 minutes into the hour. The way forward. As the business world is changing in many places, gender stereotypes are being pushed back against, right? Women are taking on a wider range of jobs in all fields and at all levels, which is quite different from employers and society usual expectations, right? Some interesting things are starting to happen. For example, more women are working in fields that have traditionally been dominated by men, and namely airline pilots, engineers, and IT specialists, particularly. More women are entering the managerial space, even though they tend to work in management support function like human resources and administration. Employers are becoming more aware of women's talent and skills as women continue to out-educate men. Sorry, let me get some water. In countries after country. And lastly, more women are getting involved in politics and governments. So I will look at 3 arguments that are important for the way forward. First one, the talent pool is definitely growing for women. Okay, as I noted earlier, in most countries, women now have higher level of education than men, and they are gradually moving into professional, managerial, and business-owned roles. Okay, so according to the same McKinsey and Company report that I mentioned earlier, women have some greater traits and skills than men, such as flexibility, creativity, logical reasoning, problem sensitivity, mathematical reasoning, and visualization. Okay, they also stated that such traits and skills will likely be in higher demand in the future. Also, some studies reveal that women are naturally stronger than men in some of the most important human-centered skills, such as relationship, communication, empathy, and emotional intelligence. Second argument that I looked at is women's presence in decision-making position improve the bottom line. Studies have shown that having balanced numbers of men and women at all levels of an organization, and especially at the top where decisions are made, leads to better business results. Also, more women in the workplace can directly make a business more profitable and can help the bottom line by improving the business's image and reputation. Some studies even revealed that there is a strong link between more gender diversity and higher profit margin in a wider range of business outcomes. So they also showed that businesses with a business culture that includes both men and women are much more likely to benefit from better business results than that comes from, I guess, the inclusion policies that they implement in their business. And the third argument is really what should happen. Okay. Well, companies and government must challenge the bias and leverage the gender diversity bonus, because the rise of women in business is good news for everyone, because when women succeed, business prosper and economy grows, right? We need more women in leadership roles to create a more balanced and fairer world. I will conclude this third point by saying that we must continue to support the women who are changing the business landscape for the better. Okay. Let's give them the resources they need to thrive, and let's celebrate their successes, because they are making the world a better place for all of us. I'm going to wind down some and summarize what I talked about today. I said a lot. So I explained the progression of women over the past few years. I talked some about the challenges that women face, and I also talked about the way forward. So, personal opinion, as I see it, as we progress further into the 21st century, it is crucial that the voices and contribution of women are taken into account. Too often, women's experiences and insights are left out of important conversations and decisions that impact our world. We cannot achieve true equality and progress until women's perspectives are given the weight they deserve. And in order to create a brighter future for all, we must empower women to share their knowledge and ideas. So thank you for being a part of this necessary movement. So, excuse me, I hope that you enjoyed the show and agree that there is no doubt that the future is bright for business women today, both in the corporate world and in the world of business ownership. The numbers are definitely on our side, and we have a lot of support from our peers, our mentors, and other women in business. Now, there is nothing stopping women, nothing that we cannot get over. It is definitely a good time to be a woman in the business world. Okay, so this is the end of my comments. And as you know, I like to end the show with a quote. And today I selected a quote from an American actress by the name of Vera Farmiga. And it reads, "There are women who make things better. There are women who change things. There are women who make things happen. There are women who make a difference. I want to be one of these women." This brings us to the end of today's Merging Life and Money episodes. Again, I hope that you have enjoyed today's show, and I encourage you to watch the replay. So, for more information about how to achieve financial wellness from the inside out and live a purposeful life with the money you have, join me next week, Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Mountain time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Atlantic time for my Bermudian pips, and 10 a.m. Friday, Brisbane, Australia time for my Australian friends. As a matter of fact, I will be starting a series on all you should know about student loans. And this will be with my special guest, Eric Dudley. Thank you for being here today on the Merging Life and Money Show. I am your host, Marie-Jo César. I will be back again next week. Until then, continue merging life and money. Bye for now.